Who is a bad guy in history who actually wasn't a bad guy? That woman who spilled McDonald's coffee on her lap. A dingo really ate her baby. In Brave Heart, William Wallace gets betrayed by Robert the Bruce, which never happened. He was loyal to the end. Richard Jewell, security guard at the Atlanta Olympic who was blamed for the bombing. Machiavelli, one of the most honest dudes in history, and his name is instead synonymous with villainy. Niccolò Machiavelli. Machiavelli didn't invent the idea of lying or ruthlessness. He made an observation about what worked and tried to get a new gig. Now his name is synonymous with heartless manipulator. Captain Hazelwood of the Exxon Valdez. He is often pictured on the helm of the Exxon swaying drunkenly, going full throttle into the reef, talking like a pirate. What actually happened? Valdez's critical navigation equipment was out of commission. Faxes sent to Exxon and Exxon told them to sail instead. Coast Guard budget cuts removed vessel tracking in the area. Green and tired crew was on duty. Request was made to relief crew. It was denied. XO, who was on con at the time, was inexperienced on the passage and neither requested pilotage. While Hazelwood did drink that day, he was not in command of the con at the time and was in his quarters resting. Hazelwood made a comment that he needed a drink because of how upset he was over the situation. Exxon's PR paid off the media to blame Hazelwood. However, Hazelwood was charged with only one charge, which was for pollution. He proved he was not a drunkard and retained his captain's license, even getting offers to sail again, which he turned down. The real villains are mass media, false news, and comedians, but Exxon's PR spending power to keep the blame off them. Hazelwood passed away last year after the ANNV of the spill. Random fact: the Valdez sailed until 2008 under different name Oriental Nicety. Anyone that is familiar with the movie 300 is aware of how it sanitizes the Spartans and how it demonizes the First Persian Empire. The reality is that the First Persian Empire, or the Achaemenid Empire, was pretty forward-thinking for the era. This is the empire that freed the Jews from the Babylonians and gave the world the Cyrus Cylinder, which some regard as the first Bill of Rights. As for Sparta, it was a militaristic society based on social Darwinism, centuries before the birth of Charles Darwin, and it had a greater percentage of slaves than Persia ever did. Edit. I am not suggesting that the First Persian Empire was perfect. I am just pointing out the historically inaccurate and racist portrayal of Persia in the movie 300. In the film Titanic, the character Murdoch killed someone, took bribes, and generally came across as a right shit. He was a real-life person who was actually a hero and saved many lives. His living relatives were so disgusted that the VP of Fox travelled to Dalbeattie to personally apologize and presented a £5,000 donation to Dalbeattie High School to boost the school's William Murdoch Memorial Prize. That movie's initial gross was over $1.8 billion. Donating £5,000 is like the average U.S. man giving them a dime and saying "my bad." Richard Jewell, initially lauded as a hero and a brave man who ran towards the bomb to help. Then the FBI and media turned on him and accused him of doing the bombing himself, because he was actually just as fucking outlandishly brave and ran toward the bomb to help people. They took his truck for evidence, he had to go into hiding, made a villain by incompetent people. For years, finally exonerated, and dies shortly afterward. That woman who was accused of kidnapping children because her kids didn't have her DNA, but in fact her uterus had different DNA than the rest of her body. Lydia Fairchild. She has chimerism, so her uterus has different DNA from the rest of her body, the DNA of her absorbed twin. And the twin gets the last laugh because it gets to pass on its genes and Lydia does not. What a weird and totally correct perspective on this. The McDonald's coffee lady, the woman who sued McDonald's after she spilled coffee on her lap, received third-degree burns in her pelvic area. She was hospitalized for 8 days and required a couple years of rehabilitation. The media jumped on the story, making it a poster case for frivolous lawsuits. Edit. Corrected typos.